Yes, we did. Pyongyang confirms it test-fired a submarine-launched ballistic missile. Talking Taiwan. As the EU holds its first debate on closer ties with the country, we ask why Lithuania is backing Taiwan. In an exclusive interview, the president of Taiwan's only approved local COVID vaccine tells us why Medigen should be the shot of choice. And Japan's Mount Aso erupts in spectacular fashion, billowing smoke kilometers into the air. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. North Korea has confirmed it did test fire a submarine-launched ballistic missile, further ratcheting up tensions on the Korean peninsula. Ryan Kilpatrick has more.
These images from state media show what had been widely suspected since reports first emerged on Tuesday. A North Korean test of a submarine-launched ballistic missile into the Sea of Japan, the first such launch in over 2 years. It came just hours after trilateral talks between the United States, Japan, and South Korea concluded. Washington had reaffirmed its unconditional offer to resume talks on Pyongyang's nuclear weapons program. The launch was met with the usual responses: concern and condemnation from Seoul and Tokyo, and calls for restraint from Beijing, seeking to downplay the latest in a growing inventory of missile tests.
当前半岛局势处于关键时期，有关各方应着眼大局，保持克制，致力于维护半岛和平稳定，坚持对话协商的正确方向。
The official confirmation of yesterday's launch has given experts the opportunity to examine details regarding the new weapon.
Judging by the pictures, we believe that it is a new SLBM that was revealed as a North Korean defense exhibition which Kim Jong-un himself attended around a week ago. It's a relatively short-range missile, which means that it will be most threatening to South Korea. Obviously, with any kind of new North Korean missile, that presents new challenges to missile defenses in the region.
But with the deadlock over the Korean peninsula offering little hope of progress, this latest weapons test will most likely fail to change the facts on the ground.
The response from the international community generally isn't that strong unless North Korea conducts either a nuclear or intercontinental ballistic missile ICBM test, and North Korea has really noticed this and so is conducting a lot of missile launches that, while they present each one in their own unique way new challenges to missile defenses in the region, the international community really can't reach a consensus on how to respond to these kind of missile launches. I think unless North Korea conducts one of these bigger tests of an ICBM or a nuclear test, I think South Korea in some regards might not respond that strongly to the North Korean weapons tests, so that they can keep the potential for diplomacy alive.
Ryan Kilpatrick for TaiwanPlus.
China has successfully tested a domestically developed solid-fuel rocket engine and says it's the most powerful of its type ever developed. This video, released by Chinese state media, shows the solid-fuel rocket engine during its test run. The engine has a diameter of 3.5 meters and a maximum thrust of 500 tons and is powered by 150 tons of solid fuel. The test run offers another option for powering China's rapidly growing space industry. Now, a fleet of 10 Chinese and Russian naval vessels has sailed through the Tsugaru Strait, which separates the Japanese islands of Honshu and Hokkaido. The group of 10 vessels passed through the strait on Monday. The joint naval exercise did not violate Japanese territorial waters nor international laws, but Japan's Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary said Tokyo is monitoring the situation closely. 5 people are now confirmed dead after a flash flood washed away a group of people that were on an outing in New Taipei City on Saturday. A search team found the body of a 15-year-old girl surnamed Chen.
茄东潭的下游大概300公尺处啊，我们有发现一个女性血统的大体。
Rescue workers are now looking for an 8-year-old girl who is still missing. They have identified 32 locations where they are intensifying the search. Now that rescue efforts have entered day 4, hope is fading that they will find the missing girl alive. Workers have begun using water drones to search under rocks in the river. Taiwan is sending a 65-member trade delegation to Eastern Europe in a visit that aims to build on recently warming ties. The 10-day trip includes stops in Slovakia, the Czech Republic and Lithuania, 3 countries that have all donated vaccines to Taiwan. Analyst Zsuzsa Anna Forenzi says the trip is another sign of the developing economic relationship between Taiwan and Europe.
This is a strong indication that both on the European level and the level of member states, as in this case, Lithuania or the Czech Republic, there is a clear understanding that there is a lot that Taiwan and the EU can do together in cooperation. And here I would stress that here we talk about how much more we can cooperate and what are the best ways to go forward to consider Taiwan genuinely a partner.
Now, ahead of the Taiwan delegation's arrival in Lithuania, I spoke to Dovile Sheklene, a Lithuanian legislator and co-chair of the Interparliamentary Alliance on China. She explained to me why Lithuania has taken such a bold stance in support of Taiwan.
What is most important is to have closer and better bilateral cooperation, to have really closer friendship ties between Taiwan and Lithuania. And for me, values-based foreign policy is important. I believe, especially for small countries that have been really through horrible times historically, it's very important to stick together, to fight for our own values, to fight for our freedom, to ensure that our democracy is preserved. And in my opinion, only economic relation between democratic countries is a sustainable way forward, because it's more predictable, because it's safer, because it's more beneficial. Authoritarian regimes may play various propaganda games. They may promise mountains of gold, but it doesn't really pay off, because we can actually devastate, destroy everything in a split second. So even the legal regulation of China, for example, it allows them to basically get rid of any international foreign business in a split second. Also, in my opinion, every area of trade, every area of economic, cultural, health affairs, relations that we are going to develop, any area is great. I really support it.
So I guess this values-based foreign policy is precisely why you are taking a principled stance against China and then also supporting Taiwan.
Yes, Lithuania has really undergone a quite horrible terror era. Half a century we have been occupied by a Soviet communist regime. And in my opinion, all communist regimes are very similar. It doesn't matter if it's the Chinese Communist Party or if it was Soviet Communist Party. They are actually really good at suppressing freedom and rights. They are really skilled in propaganda, but we are not really good in ensuring welfare of their citizens in a long-term sustainable manner. We know what it means to live in a prison. We really support the right of every nation to self-determine, to make their own decisions. For us, this really bloody historical experience means that it would be unimaginable if we wouldn't understand Taiwan and if we would not stand for our values and principles. Yes, of course, we are trying to do what we can, and we believe that people of Taiwan have a right to self-determine in what kind of unions, relationships, relations they want to be. It's up to you, not to anybody else.
The EU Parliament on Tuesday night held its first debate focusing exclusively on EU-Taiwan relations. While support for the country is growing within the bloc, there are still questions whether the recommendations to strengthen ties will gain traction. James Chater reports.
A landmark report followed by a landmark debate. The subject, Taiwan. Initially tabled by Swedish European MP Charlie Weimers, the report's recommendations were wide-ranging. It called on EU members to intensify relations with Taiwan, expressed grave concern about recent Chinese military incursions, and called for a bilateral investment agreement with Taiwan. On the debate floor, consensus emerged on Taiwan's importance to EU foreign policy.
Taiwan is a like-minded partner with whom Europe shares many common values. In a region where this is not always a given, in light of Taiwan's robust democracy and technologically advanced economy, it is crucial that the EU and Taiwan pursue a comprehensive and enhanced partnership that underpins the rules-based order.
The report comes amid warming European sentiment toward Taiwan, after China's assertive foreign policy has sowed skepticism in European capitals. From some during the debate, there were pointed comments for Beijing.
The overarching goals of the EU's Taiwan policy have always been stability, peace, and respect for the will of the people, and therefore we have consistently opposed unilateral changes of the status quo in the Taiwan Strait. But these worthy goals are under assault from the People's Republic of China. Beijing is undermining peace and stability through aggressive actions in many different dimensions.
But analysts have warned implementation of the report's proposals will be another matter. One example is the much-touted bilateral investment agreement. Although this has been proposed by the European Parliament, the final endorsement of the agreement would have to come from the European Council, made up of the leaders from each EU country. All of which means that support for Taiwan among European lawmakers won't necessarily translate into concrete actions.
What we're seeing, of course, is intensified interest and intensified push for boosting EU-Taiwan relations, primarily coming from European lawmakers. We're not seeing as much of public support from the side of executive. Of course, we have seen this sort of support taking place in the EU's Indo-Pacific strategy, but still the EU's hands are relatively tied or relatively limited by its adherence to one China policy.
European parliamentarians in Strasbourg are set to vote on the report on Wednesday evening. Regardless of the outcome, a consensus in Europe is emerging for increased support of like-minded Taiwan. But with the interests of 27 member states to balance, a sea change in the EU's policy on Taiwan and China remains a way off. Chris Ma and James Chater for TaiwanPlus.
The EU's top official has clashed with Poland's Prime Minister over a recent ruling from the country's constitutional court that challenges the supremacy of EU laws. During a heated debate in the European Parliament, Commission President Ursula von der Leyen described the Polish ruling as a direct challenge to the unity of the bloc's legal order. Poland's Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki hit back, saying Poland was being intimidated and attacked by an EU whose top court takes power away from member states. Coming up, flash floods are causing havoc in parts of India. Details after the break. Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. A reminder of our top story. North Korea confirmed it test-fired a submarine-launched ballistic missile, further heating tensions on the Korean peninsula. A volcano in southern Japan has erupted, blasting ash more than 3 kilometers into the air and triggering a warning of possible lava flows. A huge column of ash can be seen billowing from Mount Aso in Japan's Kumamoto prefecture. The Japan Meteorological Agency has issued warnings for the city of Aso and 2 nearby towns. Hikers and residents are being told to avoid the mountain and its surrounding areas. Taiwan's first locally produced vaccine, Medigen, faced criticism when it was approved for emergency use authorization, or EUA, ahead of completing phase 3 trials. In an exclusive interview with TaiwanPlus, Medigen's President Charles Chen tackles the criticism head-on and explains how the very few COVID cases in Taiwan triggered an entirely new way of approving vaccines.
Due to the extremely low incident rate in Taiwan, it is almost impossible that we can carry a so-called traditional phase 3 trial. However, FDA, by Taiwan FDA, designed a pathway to the EUA for local vaccines, and by enlarge the total participant number from few hundred to 3,000 to 4,000 participants, to demonstrate the necessary safety and as well as their immuno response. As to the immuno response, it also shows very, very good result. To give you an example, that to compare our our antibody titer is almost 4 times higher. You probably see from the other report, 4 times higher than the compared vaccine, which means that our vaccine is not only safe, but also pretty effective, okay? But of course, unfortunately, as you said, that we do have an opportunity to carry a so-called phase 3 trial. However, the government of Taiwan, which is authority, TFDA, they have used a so-called immunobridging that to prove that this vaccine is actually effective. So you can see, as I said earlier, that the participant shows much higher immuno response, which is a higher antibody titer. And so we convert our result by a so-called international standard unit. And then we estimate that our vaccine protection, or we say if efficacy, is around 85 to 90%. And all these results being published recently in a world-leading scientific journal called Lancet. So we feel that this vaccine is not only safe, but also work.
Medigen hadn't completed the phase 3 trials before it got Taiwan's FDA approval.
Yes.
Do you accept that this is the reason why so many people in Taiwan feel that it's not so safe? They would prefer to have other vaccines.
As I said earlier, that the so-called Taiwan EUA regulation is almost the same. I shouldn't say almost the same. It's equivalent to the traditional phase 3 design. But due to the very unique Taiwan situation, which is that we have no problem here. So because we have very, very low incident rate, therefore there's no possibility to do this phase 3 trial. So people should understand this is our luck instead of our problem, right? But now when you look at the data today, especially the one I said that we published in Lancet, people should feel more confident as I keep saying all the time, that data actually is the best evidence to let people get a confidence.
I understand you are undertaking phase 3 trials right now in Paraguay.
Yes.
When do you expect to see the results?
Well, I think again, by end of the year, we will have all the results. Everything goes very smoothly so far, yes.
And why could we not have carried out the phase 3 trials in a second country earlier?
Yeah, but again, I think to do a clinical trial is a lot of time, money, effort included, right? So we have to solve the first problem, which is that get the Taiwanese EUA complete, then worry about the next. So with limited resources, we can only choose the most important to start first, right? So once we get this EUA, we can start to give people the chance to get medicine, vaccine, then we go at the next step.
You can catch the next part of the interview with Medigen's president on Friday on TaiwanPlus News and also on our online platforms. Heavy rains are battering many parts of India, triggering flash floods and landslides. In the northern Himalayan state of Uttarakhand, at least 35 people have been killed, while in the southern state of Kerala, evacuations and search and rescue efforts are being stepped up after dozens of people were killed by the deluge and landslides. Divya Gopalan reports.
It was not how this bride and groom had imagined their wedding day would be. Unprepared for the floodwaters that had inundated their village, a cooking vat was the only transport that could get them to the temple in time. Trailed by a photographer paddling through the flooded streets, the couple managed to tie the knot. But what should have been one of the happiest days of their lives has been overshadowed by the devastation wreaked by heavy rains across their home state of Kerala. In the worst affected districts of Kottayam and Idukki, roads and houses have been washed away. India's Army, Navy and Air Force have been drafted to help search and rescue teams move families away from vulnerable areas, while thousands of people are being evacuated to relief camps.
അതുകൊണ്ട് ഒരുപാട് നാശനഷ്ടങ്ങൾ ഉണ്ടായിരിക്കുന്നു. ഇതുകൊണ്ട് കൈ വൃത്തിയാക്കിയിട്ട് പോലും വൃത്തിയാകുന്നില്ലാത്തൊരു സാഹചര്യമാണ്. ഈ തൂമ്പ അല്ലാതെ വേറെ ഒന്നുമില്ല കയ്യിൽ. ഈ എടുത്തിരിക്കുന്ന ഡ്രസ്സും ബാക്കിയെല്ലാം ഒലിച്ചു പോയി. വണ്ടികളെല്ലാം കിടക്കുന്ന അവസ്ഥയാണ് ഈ കാണുന്നത്. എല്ലാം പോയി. അതുകൊണ്ട് എന്തെങ്കിലും ഒരു നടപടികൾ ഗവൺമെന്റിന്റെ ഭാഗത്ത് ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് സ്വീകരിച്ചു തരണമെന്ന് ഞങ്ങൾ അഭ്യർത്ഥിക്കുന്നു.
The government has announced financial aid for those who have lost houses and crops. The southern state of Kerala is home to about 33 million people and regularly experiences heavy rainfall in the monsoon months from June to September. But flash flooding and landslides have become more frequent in recent years. India's meteorological department has predicted more heavy rainfall in the coming days. Bill Kong and Divya Gopalan for TaiwanPlus.
Malaysian singer and songwriter Nami Wee and Australian singer Kimberly Chen have been removed from Chinese social media platforms after the pair released a duet taking aim at the country's online nationalists.
对不起，伤害了你，微博删掉没关系，我听见有个声音是玻璃心碎。
The Mandarin language song, called Fragile, mocks the reactions of Chinese internet users to perceived slights against their country. Artists from Taiwan, such as rapper Duoqi and entertainer Chen Jiaxing, have been quick to voice their support for the duo and their decision to speak up against China. Thanks for watching TaiwanPlus. We'll leave you with some images of a newborn marmoset in Macedonia's Skopje Zoo. Stay safe and see you next time.